The 2025 Maryland football schedule has officially been released. Terpsville Flex Zone family, God's favorite host, the host with the most back, with more Maryland football coverage right here on the Flex Zone podcast. Only place giving you that Maryland football and your sports coverage. How you wonder when you need it? I got the 2025 schedule for Maryland football. The 2024 season, it just ended. It was garbage. It was trash. It was hot dog water. We gonna forget about it. We're going to leave it in the past and walk forward and leave those things behind us as we get ready for 2025. Malik Washington coming in. Mike Locksley back under the helm. You still got Billy Edwards. You still have other pieces. You got a top 25 perennial recruiting class. Let's break it all down right here on the Flex On Podcast. Stack that subscribe button. Go ahead, give it a step hard. Go ahead, hit stick that like button. Tackle that thumbs up. It helps us out tremendously. And make sure you sound off below in the comment section. Make sure you bulldoze that bell and sound off. Let me know how you feel about the schedule. What do you think the win-loss record could be? Any games you're going to? What games are you looking forward to watching with new Big Ten and new conference and non-conference opponents for 2025? Sound off down below in your comment section and let me know. Even leave your favorite emoji. Leave a turtle emoji. Leave a football emoji. We appreciate it as it helps us out tremendously. Let's get to it. The Maryland football schedule was released today, just a few hours ago, actually, around, I would say, 4 p.m. local time. The Terps will kick off their season August 30th at SECU Stadium against Florida Atlantic, August 30th. So as of the recording of this video, which is December 11th, 2024, crazy to believe that 2024 is almost gone, Maryland football will be kicking off their season August 30th. That is, I believe, a Saturday. I'll get to it later. They don't have any Friday games, but August 30th is when the season will start. That is a Saturday. I'm assuming a Saturday afternoon. That will be a home game against Florida Atlantic. Then they host Northern Illinois. Remember, Northern Illinois went into South Bend and beat Notre Dame. Their Notre Dame's one loss. So we can't take them lightly, even though I think the Terps should win that game. That is on September 6th, Labor Day weekend, and then Towson on September 13th. So local. I love seeing the local teams, the Towsons, the Howards, the Delawares, the Villanovas, the Virginias, the Virginia Techs, giving you a little bit of that old ACC vibe. I like seeing those type of games for the non-conference for Maryland, and even throwing in a team like Northern Illinois. That is something that you don't see regularly either. So those are games that we like because they're very, very winnable. But nothing is a given with the Terps team, which we'll get into. And then, unlike this season, when the Terps did start their big conference play against Michigan State in week 2, Maryland will begin conference play on September 20th. So that will not be until week 4. And then return home for home games against Washington. Will be their second year in the Big Ten. They just were in their inaugural season. And Nebraska, Dylan Raiola, the mini Mahomes, going into year 2, going into being a sophomore. That's going to be tough. The 4th and 11th after its first bye week. So they will have a double bye week, so 2 byes yet again for this upcoming season. Let me pull up the schedule actually so you can follow along with me. As you can see, we got the schedule. August 30th, the red is a home game and the yellow or gold is away. But getting back to the schedule, the Terps will flip-flop between home and away games over the next 3 weeks, starting with UCLA on October 18th. Maryland has not played UCLA in football since 1955, so you've seen the basketball playing UCLA regularly now. They were out there last year. UCLA comes back here. I think it's like the 3rd year in a row. They started in College Park, went out there, and now they're back here. The Terps then host Indiana. Intriguing to see how Indiana will look in 2025. Will they get even better? Will they get more recruits? Will they get more NIL? Will they get more transfer portal guys committing to their roster? They could. They could be ascending to be in that top 3-4 in the Big Ten. You got Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, I think, will be back. And you gotta show some love to them. You gotta show some love to Indiana. They look like they're going to be around. I know they got a lot of older guys, but a lot of those guys, I feel like they're going to bring in even more guys. Maryland, then, that is after the second bye week, by the way. Then Maryland travels to Rutgers for the Rutgers rivalry, which I love. Big Ten matchup on November 8th. Rutgers came here this past season. We go up to Rutgers, and we know that is never an easy game. Maryland closes the season with road games at Illinois, who was ranked in the top 25 perennially all season, and Michigan State on the road, had them here last season, November 29th, and a home game to close out against Michigan on November 22nd. I know they're going to be better than they were this year, and they beat Ohio State this year. The Terps have no Friday night games scheduled for next season, as the game times and broadcast information will be announced at a later date. So as you can see there, we start with Northern Illinois. That should be a win, 1-0. You then you host Florida Atlantic. They come in from warm weather up north. Obviously, it'll still be warm, but you should win that game. Florida Atlantic, you should win that game. Then you get Northern Illinois, you should win that game. You should be no doubt 2-0. I don't care if it's Billy Edwards. I don't care if it's whomever at the quarterback position. It needs to be 2-0. Number 3, Towson. And honestly, looking at the first 3 non-conference games of the season, hell, even the first 4 or 5 games of the season up until the Washington game, I don't mind looking at possibly putting Malik Washington in starting from day one. Throw him into the fire, see what you have. We don't got time to waste. You already got a 2026 number 1 overall recruit, number 2 overall, number 1 in this position, the local kid, Mr. Ely. You got potentially the offensive lineman, his friend coming with him, some of his teammates, other recruits. If you could get out to a good 4-5-0 start with Malik Washington as a freshman, the confidence that he can build, the rapport he can build with his team, the leadership that he can show, the winning mentality, and just that spark and energy he could bring to the Terps. It could be like Jaden Daniels. It could be like a Lamar Jackson. It could be like when you get that franchise QB, things could really turn around. But I look at Florida Atlantic as a win, Northern Illinois as a win. These are games they should win by double digits. Towson, a win. Then you go to Wisconsin. I want to say win, but I think the Terps are probably going to wet the bed, because Wisconsin honestly had a down year this year. And I think they'll be even better this season versus Washington. Won't be easy. I think Washington will be better this year. That is not going to be an easy game, but west to east, I'm slowly leaning towards the Terps. So I got them at, 4-1. Then they play Nebraska. I think that is a loss. I'm going to say 4-2. Then they go to UCLA. Can they beat UCLA? I don't know how good UCLA is going to be next year. But I'm going to say 5-2. I'm going to say 5-2 because they have to legitimately find a way to win some of these games on the road. While you do have to play well at home, you have to be able to steal a game or 2 on the road. And that's what Maryland's going to have to do. And they have 4 home games and 5 road games in their Big Ten schedule. So it is what it is. They're going to have to win on the road, like I just said. They're going to have to win in tough environments. But Maryland avoids Penn State for the first time since they joined the Big Ten in 2014, and it does not have to play Ohio State for the second straight season. And they don't have to play Oregon either. So each of the Terps opponents, Indiana, Michigan, Nebraska, and Washington, are bowl-eligible teams. Michigan went 7-5. They face Alabama. Nebraska went 6-6. They face Louisville. And Nebraska will face Boston College. They went 6-6. Washington and Nebraska both went 6-6. Washington will face Louisville. So even Washington went 6-6, and they had a down year. Nebraska even underachieved after a decent start. Michigan had a down year, and they still went 7-5, and like I said, beat Ohio State. Only 2 of Maryland's road opponents, Illinois and Rutgers, are going bowling. The Fighting Illini, who went 9-3, faced number 15 South Carolina, and the 7-5 Rutgers team will beat the Terps in College Park, face Kansas State on December 26th. So all of these teams are bowl eligible teams. These are teams that win a minimum of 6-7 games, 6-6, 5-5. So Terps have 3 non-conference games and must be 3 wins if they hope to become bowl eligible again as well, which is that 6-win threshold. So like I said, getting back to the schedule, Florida Atlantic, you should win. Northern Illinois, you should win. Towson, you should win. I'm going to just say best case scenario, you should beat Wisconsin, you should beat Washington, you should beat Nebraska. You should beat UCLA. You should be 7-0 going into Indiana, bowl eligible. Then you're 7-1. Then you maybe lose to Indiana Rutgers 7-2. You lose to Illinois 7-3. You lose to Michigan at 7-4. You lose at Michigan State 7-5. I could see 7-5 bowl eligible because the 7 wins could come in a variety of ways. They could beat Florida Atlantic and lose to Northern Illinois. Because who knows, Northern Illinois could be better this season. They could go 3-0 and lose at Wisconsin, go to 3-1. They could start 3-0 and lose to Wisconsin, lose to Washington, lose to Nebraska, lose to UCLA, lose to Indiana, lose to Rutgers, lose to Illinois. They could lose. I don't know, because I think Michigan State's going to be even better next year. They're going to probably try to get a quarterback or something. So there are a myriad of ways this could go, because it's going to be crazy to see how these teams transition over the next 3 to 4 months as we get into March and April and spring ball and spring practice. So who jumps ship? The transfer portal window is open. What late guys who haven't signed yet flip and maybe get decided or swayed to go somewhere to play? They're going to have to go somewhere, right? Like I said, there's a lot of ways that this can go. Obviously, signing day just happened, but what about guys who have not signed yet? You know what I mean? Or undecided maybe, or like I said, transfers and guys who can still defect from programs. So there are a lot of ways they can go with this, but I would say best case scenario, I'm going to say best case scenario for next year, because they are going to, like I said, it's going to be a war of attrition. They're going to lose a lot of guys, but they're going to get a lot of guys in. Are all of those guys going to translate to be playmakers and what you want? Like I said, the biggest question, obviously, on offense are quarterback and the offensive line. They go hand in hand. Are you going to go with Billy Edwards, or are you going to go with Malik Washington? Looking at the first couple games, if you want to see what Malik Washington is made of, you're going to have to throw him to the fire eventually. You got 3 straight non-conference games at home. He can really learn to play at the next level, get used to the speed of the game, and then he can be ready for that September 20th road game. Like I said, I would go with Malik Washington, because if he is who he say he is, and they say he is, the scouts and all of the pundits and analysts who watch him play, and we've got people who watched him and said he is as good as advertised, he should be able to beat Florida Atlantic, Northern Illinois, and Towson. I think their offensive line can't get worse. It will be improved. They better improve it if they're going to bring in Malik Washington. And then I think you have to win at least one road game in the Big Ten. You got Wisconsin, Rutgers, UCLA, Illinois. Out of those 4, and Michigan State. Could you get at least 2 of those games and get 4 wins at home? That gets you what, 5? You got to get to 6 wins. Can you get 6? Like I said, I could see Maryland eking out a 6-5 record. I'm gonna say 6-5 right now, because I can see them starting 3-0. Wisconsin will be better, so I'll say 3-1. I'll say they beat Washington. That's 4-1. I say they beat Nebraska. That's 5-1. They lose to UCLA 6-2. You lose to Indiana and Rutgers. So that's what, 6-4. At Illinois 7-4. Michigan 7-5. And then at Michigan State is what, 7-6. Well, they play 12 games, so they play 12. So they get 2 bye weeks. 3. They got 12 games. So they would have to go either 6-6. I'm goofy with the math. Excuse me. They would have to either go 6-6 to be bowl eligible. Do they even get 6 wins? Do they even get 6 wins now looking at the schedule? They get the first 3, Florida Atlantic, Northern Illinois, and Towson. I'll give them those 3. But Wisconsin, Washington, Nebraska, UCLA, Indiana, Rutgers, Illinois, Michigan, Michigan State. Each of these teams in the Big Ten is going to take a leap, because they have to, because the Big Ten is that good, and they're just going to take a leap, I think. Even if Illinois is not a top 25 team, they'll still be a top 30 team, depending on your rankings, and Michigan is going to jump into the top 25. Could Michigan State or UCLA? Who is going to be next year's Indiana? Because you know it's going to be a breakout team. Is it Rutgers? I'm thinking 6-6. I'm looking at mediocrity again, 6-6. I'm looking at 6-6. I'm looking at 6-6, even with no Ohio State, no Oregon, no Penn State. This is probably maybe even, I don't want to say it's an easier schedule than this year, because they had a lot of opportunities at home this year to get some wins. Michigan State, Northwestern, they don't even play Northwestern this year. Rutgers, they had a couple of games to obviously have a chance to win some. Like I said, the Iowa game, they were in the Penn State game for the first 2 minutes. So they were in the Oregon game. So I really think this is looking at like a 6-6 team right now. This could change, obviously, as we get into the other phases of the recruiting process with the transfer portal, with the other aspects of recruiting, and guys who could flip, guys who could defect. And there are a lot of things that can happen, like I said, between now and April, when we get to spring ball, spring practice, and we legitimately are revving up towards August 30th, the first game of the season, where they. So you see the schedule, you see me, yours truly, God's favorite host, right here. I told you I was going to be doing a Maryland schedule release video. I didn't know the schedule was coming out right now. I actually thought the opponent, I think we might have known the opponents like the NFL, but not when they played them. So, you got to get 6 wins to become bowl eligible. You play 12. 6-6 is mediocrity, but you only won 4 games this year. So, a 2-win improvement. And you be bowl eligible. I'm going to say they go 6-6. I'm going to be cautiously optimistic, but still pessimistic at the same time. That makes sense. Because I can see them winning the non-conference games, but then when it gets to the Big Ten schedule, they only won 1 game last year. They beat USC on a flop kick. This year they got to go out west. Indiana comes here. They got to go to Rutgers, go to Michigan State, host Michigan as I knock stuff over, go to Illinois. Like I said, go to Wisconsin, who's going to be better. You got Washington coming here. You got Nebraska coming here. You know they're going to be better. So, like I said, each of these teams in the Big Ten is going to get better by force and by choice. So, Maryland, what are you going to do to compete with these teams? And you can't be worse than last year, right? The offensive line has to get a little better. Defensive line has to get a little better. The secondary has to get a little bit better, right? Going into year 2, right? But it's Maryland. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. You can't get too high. You can't get too low. You got to stay in the middle, be realistic, and just take the good with the bad and be ready to be let down. But I love this team. I'm going to support this team, and I'm going to keep giving you that Maryland content how you want it, when you need it, right here on the Flex Podcast. Make sure you click on that subscribe button. Go ahead, stick that like button, and sound off below. Let me know your predictions for the schedule. How many wins? They play 12 games. They need 6 to be bowl eligible. They weren't this year. I can see them going 6-6. Best case, maybe 7-5, 8-4 if they're really turning it on. Malik Washington starts to really ascend as the year goes on. But I could see 6-6. And honestly, who knows? They could just win another. They could win 5 games. They could go 5-7 and get 1 win improvement. But I'm gonna be optimistic. They go 6-6. They make the bowl game. Make sure you bulldoze that bell. Let me know your comments down below on the schedules. What games you may be going to. What games you look forward to watching. Are you happy? No Penn State, no Ohio State, no Oregon, Michigan. You got Indiana. You got Indiana again. You got Illinois, Michigan State, Washington, Nebraska. So every year the schedule's going to change about the opponents because it's now 18 teams. So it will switch up, and we'll continue to break it to you right here on the Flex On Podcast. Sound off down below. Let me know your thoughts on the schedule. Give me a record prediction. I hear from you. Let's come together and make this happen. Let's will another good season into existence for the Maryland football team. They got some recruits. They got the quarterback. They got to fix the offensive and defensive lines and the defensive secondary. And we got a good offensive coordinator that can help facilitate a respectable offense that can do run and pass well and protect the quarterback even with the lackluster offensive line, scheme guys open, and run the football. And be able to score points in the Big Ten, which you're going to need to do, and be physical. But sound off down below. Let me know your thoughts. I'm going with 6-6 right now. We'll see what else happens between now and then, and we'll keep you posted with more Maryland news. I'll do a recruiting video, more Maryland basketball, and all that right here on the Flex On Podcast. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great day.